Hello and welcome, this is Benevolent History here, and I'm here to give you a little overview of the Gallic campaign. Now the Gauls, the unit roster is actually quite good. They have relatively decent sword infantry, and they have pretty good cavalry, really good archers once you get the Forest of Warbands. So for the shrines, basically the best shrine to use as Gaul is Shrine to Epona, because that adds experience to your troops. So right now I'm just experimenting with what to do with my army in Numantia, which is in the middle of Spain. Now, the early game units, as you can see here, you have the war bands and the barbarian cavalry. I don't suggest using a lot of war band units because war bands, although they're pretty good units on the field early on, they cost 200 each to maintain, so they're not a very cost-effective unit. I only suggest building the minimum of war bands and wait until you get the stronger units like the swordsman or the chosen swordsman. So as Gaul, you start off with an army in Numantia, an army in Alesia, that's northern Gaul, and an army in the southern Gaul, and an army in northern Italy. Now what I suggest here with your northernmost army is to just play it safe. Don't go on the immediate offensive against Britannia or Germania. Try and wait a bit before you attack them. This northern front, I suggest just defending it essentially. While your other cities, Continent, Rodonum, and Lemanum, you essentially disband the warband unit there and instead build the barbarian peasants, because barbarian peasants only cost 100 to maintain, while warbands cost 200 to maintain. Now what I suggest with your Southern Gallic army and your army in Spain is to send them against an assault against the Spanish and the Carthaginians in order to unify Spain and hopefully control that front quickly.
General, move out. Move.
That way you could get a lot of funds, and you don't have to get a lot of funds from the mines in Spain, and you don't have to worry about that front at all. In the meantime, what I suggest in northern Italy with your troops is, if you're not a very good player on the battlefield against AI, I don't suggest you do this. What I'm going to do here is basically combine all my troops and attack the Julii Romans immediately. I don't suggest doing this if you're new. I only suggest doing this if you just want to have a very quick game, very quick blitz game. Because I think the Romans are very vulnerable early on. The only problem is the fact that the Senate has a very big army, so you're going to have to play very good battles in order to win this one.
General,
You might also notice that your funds will get you have very low funds early on because your troops cost a lot to maintain. You have a lot of armies everywhere in the field. So in order to counter that, what I suggest doing is just attacking your enemies and conquering cities. Also, what I'm doing here is essentially offering trade rights and offering map information and basically demanding that the AI pay me 1600, which for some weird reason they basically almost always accept. It's a really good way to get money early on. You might also notice that I'm building roads in all my cities. Building roads and the first tier walls in all your cities are very good. That's probably the first priority right now. Next is to build the shrines, which I already suggested, Shrine to Epona, because it adds up to 3 experience points when it's maxed. Also, the Shrine to Isis is probably pretty good if you want to control cities of other places, because it adds 30% public order as opposed to like up to 15%, I think, for the Shrine to Epona. So after you get your whole entire army all set, I'm just gonna send these guys, the 2 armies here, against a Spanish city in the middle, Osca. And I should be able to take that city quite easily, then head south in a swooping manner down to Carthago Nova, then west to the Carthaginian city, take that over very quickly, and then northwards to attack the Spanish that are in, I forgot those 2 cities on the western coast of Spain. In the meantime, I'm just garrisoning all my cities with barbarian peasants.
General.
Just one unit each city. You don't really have to worry about the cities being attacked.
General.
So I sent my spy in Iridium, and unfortunately my spy,
Besieging settlement.
not a very good spy, he just got himself killed there. Oh well. So at this point the Senate attacked me. If you're in a situation like this, what I suggest doing is for you to retreat, so that a smaller so that you'll only have to fight a smaller portion of the enemy. So you can see here now I'm fighting only the Senate instead of the Senate and the Julii Romans. But still I'm in a pretty tough situation. But in the battlefield I managed to outwit the AI and beat them. Again with the retinue you see there, you get retinue every time you gain victories, maybe when you guys get educated. I think it's also worth mentioning that as a barbarian faction, your main advantage is to rush, essentially. As a barbarian faction, your troops are not designed to duke it out with, let's say, Rome or the Seleucids or Egypt in the late game phase, because you will not have the high tier buildings like the paved roads and the dockyards or anything like that. But in order to offset that, your late game units can be accessed really early on in the campaign. So I guess that balances it out. You could easily destroy your enemy, but at the expense of that, you won't be very strong. You won't have a very strong civilization in the late game. So at this point, the Carthaginians ask for the same thing, trade. I'm gonna do the same thing with them as I did with the Julii Romans, and they accept. How nice. And you can see here that the Julii are attacking me. Again, what I think I did here was just to retreat. I have no intention of fighting this, because I'm at such a disadvantage. I pull back and another Roman army comes and attack me, and this time it's isolated by itself. So I could easily take care of this army and win. In the meanwhile, on the Spanish front, you can see here that my troops have finally went to Osca, and now I'm basically sieging it. So I'm at war with the Spanish, and I have to take Osca very quickly, then head south to Carthago Nova. After that, if the Spanish attack me in Numantia, for example, I could easily protect it. Though I think that if you are attacked by an enemy AI in one of your cities, and you're beside an enemy city, it's just ignore your own city, attack the enemy cities, unless your city is like something worthwhile to protect. At this point, again, I'm gonna battle against the AI to take over Aritium. The troops are not too strong. Once you take care of the initial Julii forces, you should have an easy time taking over Aritium and Ariminum. Yeah. I'm sending my diplomat up north and east, and then south into Greece. Hopefully talk to all the Greek factions there and give them a little bit of a high five and just tell them what's going on in the world. If you're gonna do what I'm doing in northern Italy, keep in mind that you could easily replenish your troops in those two cities, so it's not too big of a deal if you lose troops. Just don't lose whole units. So at this point, I get a few family members. I pass on the trait to the one that's better fitted, that has better traits, although not really much. A bit of boring stuff. I suggest you build buildings yourself before you actually give the AI a hand. Once you conquer a big enough empire, when it doesn't matter what buildings you build, really, you could just put it on auto-manage for construction, and you could easily, the AI would just take care of that for you. It's fine. So again, I'm gonna finally take over Osca. It shouldn't be too difficult. And there you have it. Osk has been taken with relatively minimal casualties. Even if they do lose a few warbands here, I could just really retrain them. Now, I think I did a bad choice here in that I exterminated a settlement that's poorly populated. I don't suggest exterminating settlements like Oska because they're a very small population. If you do so, you're not going to be able to build units. Now, in Aritium or any other Roman cities, for example, you really should exterminate the populace because it keeps taking care of the city much easier. The public order goes down because of less people. At this point, just build a peasant in the city, retrain all my warband units that really need retraining, and afterwards I just send it to, I think I'm gonna send it to Ariminum or whatever that city is, and then maybe head south to Rome, the city itself, because I took care of that huge SPQR army. Also, it's worth mentioning that if you take over a high tier settlement like Rome, for example, it's somewhat wise to keep buildings like the academy or something like that in order to educate your family members, because even though you can't build them, those effects, you could still use those buildings, so it's worth keeping them. So I get yet another general. I think I got this one in Iridium, whatever. It's good to get generals as you get more and more buildings, as you get more and more cities. You should get more and more, well, family members. Makes sense, obviously. Bigger empire, more family members. Not really a correlation you would see in real life, but oh well. And taking everyone out. Let's see what I'm gonna do.
Prepare to ambush.
Not sure. I think it's would be best to eliminate Julii faction first by taking all the cities, then immediately move on to the next faction, then the next faction, then faction after that. So you don't have to deal with full armies of troops. Troops of different factions, that is. So again, you see here that the SPQ are attacking me, and I think at this point I'm just gonna retreat or something like that.
We're under siege.
No, I don't think I did. Anyhow, at this point the Britannians attacked me. And the evidently the Julii faction was completely destroyed because I killed the final family member in the last battle. Well, you see from the north that the Britons are attacking me. Now this is the point in which I'm going to use this northern army. This is why I don't think going on the offensive is good initially for this army, because I think it's best to wait a little while before your Britannians or the Germanians attack you, then you retaliate. So yeah. So at this point I'm going to use my northern army to send them against the Britons, or the Britons, because the Britons are the ones who attacked me. Obviously I'm going to have to defend myself. So what I don't think you should invade Britannia itself, but just take over the Britannian settlement that's in mainland Europe. They only have one settlement there. So if you take care of that and take care of the armies in northern Italy, Gaul, you have effectively destroyed all the capability of attacking you.
General.
And you see here a few armies, a few detachments of Spain out to attack me.
Destroy. Settlement under siege. Attack.
So that's the rebel settlement of Ariminum done. So that's basically the whole Julii faction. I should be getting a lot of cash at this point. Plus I could easily retrain a lot of my men. So, but still, I think you should just keep on the momentum until either your troops will not last another battle, or you have nothing left to conquer. So I'm still gonna send this army out to south to take Rome. And unlike my Gallic ancestors, I'm gonna take over Rome this time. I'm not just gonna I'm not just gonna raze it to the ground. I'm just gonna take it over for myself, so that other Gallic people can inhabit it. Just take over the treacherous Romans and liberate Rome for the Gallic horde. That's a good sound. That's good. Very good. Noble cause.
General, destroy, victory.
For Spain, the early Spanish armies, as you can see here, you saw there, was mainly composed of round shield, cav, and skirmishers. So you don't have to worry about them. You should be able to defeat them easily if you have a lot of troops. If you have family members, cav, a good decent amount of troops, you should be able to defeat them. Plus those town militia, just atrocious units. Your warbands will just kill them. Although the warband unit, I have to mention the warband unit against units like the Hastati or Principes of Rome, they will do horribly. They're not going to win in a 1 versus 1. So if you're going to battle with Rome, you're really going to have to use hammer and anvil tactics in order to win battles. Or you need to do the surrounding tactics with your warbands. So this point I'm going to attack Britons. I think the main threat of Britannia is the fact that their general units are chariot units. And since your faction's not using any phalanx units, you should the best way to fight chariots without phalanxes is just to group your men together and to not separate your men. Just be glad that you're not fighting a human opponent. You're just fighting the AI, so the AI will not truly use chariots as effectively as a human would. Just keep in mind that when you attack chariots, you should be able to defeat them quite easily if your troops are together and if your troops fight the chariots in a hand-to-hand combat. Any unit, even the peasant unit, would be able to defeat a chariot unit like that. So Carthago Nova is taken. Now I'm gonna either what I'm gonna do. I think yeah, this point I'm just gonna head westwards into what's that city? I forgot that what the Carthaginian city there. Or or at this point I could send my troops up to Numantia and protect it, and then head west to take over all of Spain first. So in Spain, I've taken 2 Spanish cities. In Rome, I've taken northern Italy, and right now I'm sieging Rome itself. Bad day to be a Roman. And in north, I'm attacking the Britons. The Britons are essentially like Gaul, except they have chariots. So they're going to be quite difficult to face. I think the main difficulty is, as I said before, the chariots. But if you keep your men together, if you keep your cav away from chariots, you should do fine. Because chariots will do a lot of damage against cavalry units. You should know that. Be very careful. And basically I fought these Britons and won the battle quite easily. I basically sent my mercenaries to sacrifice them and let them get shot instead of my other infantry and my better troops. I think that's a good way of using mercenaries, basically as cannon fodder. Just let them die instead of your better troops. And finally, the time you've all been waiting for, the conquering of Rome by the Gallic horde. It's just beautiful, exterminating the populace. So immediately, you see here, I can build the strongest infantry unit for Gaul, which is the Chosen Swordsman. It's a really good early game unit against the AI, essentially. Not so good in multiplayer, obviously, but against anything you face in the campaign, it'll be your godsend. It'll just slaughter everything in your path. very high attack, pretty decent defense, pretty good morale as well. And you could also build a Forester Warband, which is the best archer unit in the game, albeit a little expensive. So at this point, I'm going to show you what you're going to do afterwards. With the Italian army, you should send them southeastwards to conquer the rest of Italy. Then afterwards, if you have time, you should send them out to conquer Greece, because Greece is a really good money maker. Now with the Spanish army, you send them southwestwards to take over all of the Spanish territory. Take over all of Spain so you don't have to deal with it. And with your army in northern Gaul, you just send them to take over the British city there, and then push eastwards into Germanian lands. And after that, you should have enough money to basically destroy all the factions in your path. Now, I hope you enjoy this, hope you rate and subscribe, and I hope you enjoyed watching.